Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here at Trumpful Reads, and in this video, I want to go over my favorite biographies and or memoirs that I read in 2018. I've always read biographies. Obviously, that's like a big, just like part of history, generally speaking. But memoirs, not so much. And memoirs are kind of like a newish genre that I started reading the last, I don't know, like 3 or 4 months of 2018. And it's a genre that I'm starting to really enjoy. So if you have any good recommendations for memoirs, leave some down below, comments down below. But I just want to pick out the five kind of my favorite biographies and or memoirs of 2018. We're going to start off with two honorable mentions, one of each. First up, we got The Name of the Stars by Pete Fromm, A Life in the Wilds, and this is like a legit memoir. Basically, Pete Fromm is doing some work for like his state's like wildlife agency. He has to basically spend a month in like the mountains checking out some fish eggs. But basically, as he's writing about like sort of that event, he did something similar like 20 years ago. It was a little bit harsher, like because it was during the winter time, like 20 years ago, when he was like just like out of college or in college doing that job. But it's a memoir in that he kind of goes back and forth and basically just kind of talks about how things have changed from basically back then being just kind of a young single guy to now being married and having kids and stuff, but doing kind of a similar type of thing. But it's a really good wilderness memoir if you like basically outdoor living, stuff like that. Definitely check this one out. And for like an actual biography, I'm going with The Greatest Night by Thomas Asbridge. He's pretty famous for writing like a modern or a newish book on the Crusades. I haven't read that one, but this is basically just a pure biography of William Marshall. One of the most famous like legit knights in medieval history. And like I said, it's pretty much just your standard history biography of William Marshall. Though he does go into a lot of detail, I did learn quite a bit. It was only dry during a few parts, but it was really interesting seeing his different relationships with 4 or 5 different English kings at different points in his life and how it changes kind of over time. But this is my runner-up for like a straight-up biography. All right, so now let's go on to the memoirs, and I have like one that's kind of a cheating one. I'll do that one last. But we got Revolution for Dummies, Laughing Through the Arab Spring by Bassem Youssef. And basically, Bassem Youssef went to the United States, became like a cardio heart surgeon or something. Then when he's back in Egypt during basically the Egyptian Revolution and the Arab Spring and stuff, he started basically like a late night comedy show based on something like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. So he was basically the Egyptian counterpart of that, and he's been on the Jon Stewart show, or The Daily Show, before. So you might recognize him from that. But basically, it's a memoir in that he basically just relates all this crazy, just insane stuff that was happening regarding his production of the show, basically all the threats and basically the hostility his show garnered, as well as the support it did from different segments of the Egyptian population, and kind of all the backdoor stuff kind of going on at the same time, while also basically poking fun at a bunch of like just kind of crazy stuff that was happening in Egypt and like the different like political factions that were vying for power during the Egyptian Revolution, and basically how insane some of them were, things like that. But it was just kind of a really cool look at some of the behind the scenes things, all the way up to the point where he literally had to flee the country because of basically him being marked for like treason and stuff like that, basically going against the government and all that stuff. So, but overall, it was a pretty funny, humorous book. I mean, there is a lot of sad stuff going on, and it's interesting to see how basically him and his team handled basically some of like all that tragedy stuff, like when there's like killings and massacres and stuff, and how to deal with that with something like a late night comedy show. But anyways, if you're interested in kind of like Middle Eastern politics, but you also like humorous nonfiction, definitely give this one a shot. For another memoir, this one's like a legit, like straight up memoir as well, is How to Be a Good Creature, a Memoir and 13 Animals by Cy Montgomery. Talked about this one a little bit before as well. But basically, Cy Montgomery is a really famous kind of like life science author. Probably most well known for The Soul of an Octopus, which is a tremendous read if you want to check that one out, as well as The Good Pig and several other books, including some children's books as well. Now with this book, what she does is she takes different encounters with different animals throughout her lifetime, from basically being a kid with her pet dog while stationed at military bases with her family and stuff, all the way up to basically some of the pets she had as an adult, as well as some just wild animals she encountered during her journalism activities and stuff. Even though it's a really short book, it was probably only like, I can't remember, maybe 3 or 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, something like that, to read all together. It gets pretty deep at some parts and is definitely really hard hitting, especially when she deals basically with her past family life, and her relationships, especially with like her mother and father, that weren't always like the greatest, but how she basically takes these different encounters with animals and basically draws inspiration and just gleans like learning from them. It's really hard to explain, but it's really just inspirational seeing how you can take different encounters with these animals, reflect on it, and come across with some like an emotion that's totally opposite to more like the impulsive sort of visceral emotion you would like. I think I've explained this one before too. It's like when one of her pet chickens that she like adored is basically murdered by an ermine. She doesn't get like furious at the wild animal, but comes across with a better understanding of why her mother might act a certain way, for example. So I thought that was just really well done. Like I said, it's a pretty short read, but if you like animals and memoirs, check this one out for sure. And then for the one that's kind of cheating, but it's like one of my favorite books of the year, probably my top 3, and it's kind of a memoir-ish, I guess, is A Naturalist Goes Fishing by James McClintock. And the subtitle is Casting in Fragile Waters from the Gulf of Mexico to New Zealand South Island. Basically, this is just a terrific blend of conservationism, fish science, and basically fishing memoirs, basically just like little fishing stories with his buddies, basically all over the world, whether that's in the tropics, Antarctica, basically just out in like people's backyards, basically in the United States. So it's all over the place, but definitely I would count it as a memoir because each segment, even though the main emphasis kind of underlying everything is kind of some sort of environmental kind of push to make you like think about things, it is driven by the fact that these are all just like little vignettes and little memoirs. Essentially, each little episode is just a memoir from a different point in his life. Basically, either fishing for fun with his friends or fishing for research, things like that. So I just think it's a really good blend of like several different genres. Just really excited. I picked this up for like $1 or $2, like on Book Outlet or something, like maybe $2 or $3 on bookoutlet.com, and I was just kind of like, yeah, it just looked kind of interesting, so I picked it up, and it became like one of my favorite books of the year by far. And he only has one other book, and I've read like half of it, in Lost Antarctica, but that's all he has. I'm just like, James, just like write some more, but he's basically just doing Antarctic science stuff. So anyway, so there's A Naturalist Goes Fishing. Alright, so then now we have 2 like straight up biographies, and I can't really like rank them. They're basically, this is like the best ancient one, and the other one's like the best modern-ish one. But we got The Poison King, The Life and Legend of Mithridates, Rome's Deadliest Enemy by Adrian Mayor. And this, as you could probably guess, is just like a superb biography of Mithridates, the king of Pontus, during probably about the generation or 2 before the fall of the Roman Republic. And his kingdom, basically in Asia Minor, was one of the dominant threats, especially during the era of Spartacus' slave revolt, and then you have Quintus Sertorius having his like insurgency in Spain. So there was kind of like this like triple threat, and it's just really cool to look at Mithridates' basically like lifestyle and personality. He was just like super quirky and just, I don't know, it's just like there literally should be like a TV show series, like an HBO series on the life of Mithridates. He literally ate poison pretty much every day to become immune to basically assassination attempts through poison. And someone is pulling the driveway. It's like super loud, but that's okay. Anyways, and there's like kind of the medieval legend of the Mithridatic elixir, stuff like that going on. But anyways, it's also interesting in that he was a really good military leader. He was not always like the greatest tactician or strategist. He lost several wars, lost many battles, but he always had a way to basically, as you can hear Daisy barking and running around and stuff. But he always found a way to get back up again and keep the fight going. Obviously, except for the last time when his people basically just kind of rioted and wanted him dead. But that's after just like decades and decades of fighting against Rome, and that is literally what he made his like mission. Was basically to create like an eastern counterpart to Rome to basically try to counterbalance Rome's power in the West. But anyways, like his whole like heritage of being descended from Alexander the Great and also Cyrus of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, stuff like that. It was just, I don't know, he's just a really cool figure that kind of gets forgotten in history. But I just think more people should definitely learn about him. And basically, I just thought it was just a really fun ancient biography. And lastly, and ostensibly technically probably the best biography, if I really had to come down to it, is The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt by Edmund Morris. This is the first part of a trilogy on the life of Theodore Roosevelt. Next one is Theodore Rex, which I do have, and then I need to pick up Colonel Roosevelt, which deals with after the presidency. This one deals from his birth all the way up to the assassination of McKinley before Theodore Roosevelt takes office as president. And it's a huge, it doesn't look that big, but the pages are like really thin. I think it's like it's like 800 pages of text and like another 100 pages of like footnotes and stuff. But it's just super well documented, dealing with his entire life, dealing with basically him growing up in New York, doing like his natural stuff, collecting specimens and stuff as like a 7-8-year-old kid, basically growing up, going to college, all that sort of stuff. And then his like kind of forays into politics in New York and like the state legislature and stuff, as well as like when he goes out west, basically buying land and trying to get his hand in the cattle industry as well. The only criticism I have is it doesn't deal quite enough, I don't think, with potentially with his family life. Especially, it does well with that when he's younger, in the first like third or half of the book or so, maybe probably like a third. But especially during his second marriage, after his first wife died after childbirth, I just thought it was kind of maybe not neglected, but it could have been expanded on a little bit more. Of course, you're probably like, just sort of running out of room at that point, but very few criticisms overall. Did win the Pulitzer Prize in it was either 1979 or 1980, and it's pretty easy to see why after reading it. And I'm really looking forward to reading Theodore Rex in 2019. So there you guys have it. Those are my favorite biographies and memoirs that I read during 2018. Just tell me what some of your favorite biographies and memoirs that you read in 2018, if you read any, or if you're looking forward to any. In the coming year, tell me what you're excited to read in 2019. Just some comments down below. I'll be glad to talk to you about them. And always remember, whatever you end up reading, read victoriously.